Now, back just a few years ago, headline news in the newspaper was that a sort of Bronze Age, Iron Age village has been found. The Bronze Age, Iron Age, it's like 3,000 years old. So it's coming to the end of the Bronze Age, beginning of the Iron Age. The Iron Age actually begins in some parts of the country about 850 years BC. But it was around, the village was about 3,000 years old, basically. So it's that Bronze Age, Iron Age margin. But this site itself was pristine.
Wow.
It almost as if the site had collapsed into the mud. Within a boggy sort of landscape, and there were bowls of food and all the rest of it. It was unbelievable. So it's Must Farm, and it was just outside Peterborough. Must Farm Quarry, Whittlesea, Peterborough, and basically there was a quarry. There were quarry works. I don't really know an update on Must Farm, but this site, what they were doing at this site was absolutely unbelievable. The images are wonderful. So if we sort of stop that again, and I think that there where the pin is where Must Farm is. There's Peterborough. Yeah, and we had a trip to Colchester a few years ago, and you were on it. So there you go.
I was there.
So there was talk that we sort of went to Must Farm on the way back, but we didn't, and it was a quarry, and the archaeology was over at that point. But the preservation was amazing, and there it is. So basically, what you can see there, it's this. If I get the little annotation thing in, and we sort of do this. Those there are the outlines of the village. So these were the outlines of the village, and what happened is that these then were supporting a platform. Yeah. So these timbers were in the mud.
Wow.
And there was a platform across here. So if we do a bit of drawing on this, so we get a bit of an idea. So there were planks across here. There were planks all the way across here. And my wonderful, delectable assistant has brought me a cup of tea. Thank you, Michelle. There were planks across here, and then these timbers then created a roof. So these then created a roof, and these timbers were actually creating a roof. And what you can see on just this image, it doesn't look impressive, but it is. These are actually the roof timbers.
Wow.
So they actually collapsed in the muds and the silts where they were. And actually, the other thing as well is what is absolutely amazing is these are actually the walls. So these are actually the wattle of the walls. So basically, whatever happened, there was a fire that destroyed the floor level, and everything then in sequence collapsed into the mud.
Yeah.
So if we clear this to give you a sort of an idea, if I can get my if I can get this right. So if we sort of go and hang on a minute, I don't seem to be able to do this a minute. So if I can draw this a minute, and basically I can't do any more. It's not working, right? Actually, what I'll do, I'll draw. Let's get my art skills in here. Right, so what it is, this is sort of the outline. Oh, it's working. Right, that's sort of the outline. Right, and it goes all the way, and it's sort of, you know, with the perspective. That's the outline, and that's the roundhouse that's all fallen in.
Yeah.
So that may not look impressive, but even just finding those timbers is impressive. But what is impressive is then when you get to the other images, they found lots. They found more than just one building for this village. There's more. There's more over here. So that there, they've left that so they can actually read the layers as they excavate. So this was really perfectly well preserved. So anyone watching this, and you for your research, you can work out what happened to Must Farm. The timbers were all saved and all the rest of it, but is Must Farm still there, or was it all moved to a museum? That's the question, your research. but we won't do that today. So that's for you. Don't even look it up. That's your homework for next week.
No, I'm not looking at it. What was the question?
Where is Must Farm now? What did they do with all the timbers?
Where are the timbers?
Now you can see this isn't our askew, right? So what you can see there is that if you look there, you can actually see the outline of this village. Remember what this was? It was in a shallow lake, really shallow.
Wow.
In the muds, incredible. There was a little bit of water. And then what you have then is this is the outlines of the roundhouse. And,
so it's pretty big. It's a big find, isn't it?
Yeah, but there's more than one building there. Yeah, and this is actually, these are the timbers are in the middle. So these what happens is, if I can sort of go to the side and sort of draw a little bit what's going on. So what happens is these central timbers create the supports for the roof. Yeah, and the other timbers, which are these ones here, yeah, these ones, these create the outside wall. Yeah, and if that's the floor level, and then you've got the roof then creating an apex like that. So this is what we're talking about.
That's clever.
So what we'll do to sort of make this a bit more clearer, if you follow the arrow, and we'll do a bit of an arrow. If we follow that, those central ones are these, yeah, and these are these, yeah, and then what was creating the wall up against the timbers was actually these here. Was all this wattle. You can just basically see it. Some more wattle panels around the outside. So the process was, there's a fire, okay, and if you just look at the screen, we'll look at the process. There's a fire and the floor goes, right? So this goes, the floor goes.
Yeah.
And what happens then is that these timbers are also on fire, but the floor goes, and no sooner as these timbers start to set on fire, this then falls in everything, all the timbers start to fall down. So in other words, they're not completely charred, they're well preserved. No, so we've got really well preserved archaeology at the site.
Yeah.
So that's what's going on. And then,
so were any bodies found, or
no bodies.
Got away then?
Nothing, no bodies. This is the thing, no bodies were found. So we don't really know what happened to the site 3,000 years ago. We don't know what happened. We really don't.
It could be that they burnt it themselves. Moving on. Now
this is what lots of people have said, but there's one slight downside with that, and the downside is that they found bowls with food in, right? The food was in the bowls, right?
An offering then, perhaps.
Or maybe it was. Oh, and there it is. These are the bowls with the food in. So in other words, what happens if we want to go through the process? The floor collapses first. The floor is really badly decayed. Is really badly burned, right? That collapses first. But because there's so much stuff falling in the mud and the water, it all settles. So these bowls sort of, as the floor goes, these sort of sink down. But the contents are already slightly charred, so they're able to settle. And the contents in the bowls also settled down at the bottom. So they've actually got their contents in there. So we got the last meals. So in other words, we're able to work out the recipes of the last meals.
That's incredible. Can work out.
Yes, it is incredible. This is why. And if you're doing any research on this, look at Flag Fen, which is a site near Peterborough as well, which is of a similar date, excavated by Dr. Flag Fen, yeah.
Flagfen.
Flag Fen, Fenn, yeah. excavated by the wonderful archaeologist Francis Pryor. Now, this site itself, again, we're not talking about a decade ago. This is really, really recent. Yeah, this is part of your research. They actually found, look at that. It's a timber canoe.
What?
So in other words, what we're talking about is a really thin, a really shallow layer of water. So these boats have got to be really shallow, right? So we're only talking about a foot of water in this mud. That's all we're talking about. But it's still within a sort of non-terrestrial landscape. It's in a waterborne landscape.
So it's telling us a lot about life then, isn't it?
Massively. Now, another site which was excavated at Somerset, which is the Glastonbury Lake Village and the, is it the Mere Lake Village as well? Yeah, Mere Lake Village. Yeah, you come across that. When they excavated there, they found lots of similar archaeology, but not as well preserved as this. This is deliberately abandoned. That's the point. It's deliberately abandoned. That's what's going on. Hey, and look at that. If anyone ever says that he didn't have wheels in this period, they did. Yeah,
because there's one right there.
But there's a catch. Some people believe that this may have actually been the top of a barrel or a churn or something like that. So, but that is actually circular. So it looks like it looks like what we think it is, right?
Yes.
So in other words, if they were able to make this anyway, they were able to make wheels. End of story. But we'll go with it being a central spoke and whatever. But that there is one of the timbers in the mud, so it's not a spoke. So as that's collapsed in, it's sort of become embedded on this, and it's gone through.
Yeah.
Happened to have gone through the timber at the right place. So again, this is made out of several planks. Oh, there it is. Now that there. It's an even better image. You can see this is all planked together. And it's not made of one piece of timber, but again, that looks like something that a cart would use in the medieval period, or maybe like a sort of reconstructed village type thing. So
it's a bit of craftsmanship, isn't it?
Yeah, I can remember somebody arguing that it was something to do with the top of a butter churn or something, but I'm for the wheel. It's circular, right? So I don't care. They were able to make something circular like this. So they were able to do this. They would have been able to have carts. That's my point. And there's a logical point, to be honest with you. It's not a silly point. I don't care. It's circular. That's it. And again, the more and more you see these images, the more and more it starts to come alive. And what you can see there, you can actually clearly see the center of this sort of apex on the roof. So as it's been like this, as the whole thing starts to sort of go into the mud, it sort of departs and then it settles in the mud. It sort of settles down in the mud. It's amazing that this has survived. And then you've got another building over there on the top bit. You can see another one. Yeah.
So how was this discovered?
By accident, because they were digging a quarry.
Oh, they were digging the quarry. Okay,
do you know, the point is the reason why I made that video about the Bendrix today and what damage was being caused there, right? If you've got an unscrupulous developer who wants to destroy anything like this, they could do it.
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying that the developer is unscrupulous at the Bendrix. I'm not saying that. They obviously did everything by the book, and they didn't require an archaeologist for whatever reasons, even though human remains have been found there. Right? But the point is, you could have had a developer. You can quarry over there, right? You can do it, right? And then he destroys all this without knowing it. Or, there's different ways of looking at this sort of stuff. Anyway, let's just move on. That's another story. So I've actually put a tick down there. What am I doing a tick down there for? Right. Okay. Oh, hang on a minute. Hang on, mouse. Good. Okay, go. So again, now this is what we can see. You see the way this has worked? You can see all the panels.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's a lot. They're just giving an example of what's going on. So what we've got this sort of, basically, you can imagine that this is along the side. Is like a little like you've been to Cosmeston, and I don't know, along the lakeside they've got little sort of wooden barrier up to stop
boardwalks.
Yeah, that's right. So this is a settlement on a massive boardwalk. Yeah, and then that's what that's supporting. And the wall and roof supports. Obviously, we mentioned that, and the collapsed roof beam, sort of that in sequence, and the wall panels. With daub, burnt daub as well. Daub isn't usually burnt; it's dried, but we've got burnt daub because of the fire involved in the building. Lots of these timbers weren't burnt at all; they just didn't burn.
I suppose with it being really damp because of the water, it wouldn't have been a huge fire. What's that?
That's a little bit of yarn.
God.
Yeah, that amazing. If that's a little bit of yarn, they did have textiles back then. They did have material. That's somebody's repair kit. Can you imagine
Yeah.
the woman? Yeah, one of the ladies or men with their little repair kit. I'm not going to be able to repair your trousers now because you left it behind.
You left a yarn.
You left an old yarn. Like I'm telling an old yarn now. Doing a bit of an old yarn. Yeah. So
look at that.
That is nice, isn't it? Yeah. We'll go back. That is really nice. It is nice, and it's
3,000 years old.
It's tiny. That's a little bit of a repair kit. So we sort of move on a bit more, and there is one of the archaeologists excavating, and I do believe she's excavating on some animal bones, and lots of these timber, they just look like so friggin' new. I can remember looking at this. I can remember looking closely at some of these timbers from some of the other images, and I actually just thought, well, you know, some of those timbers could have been out in sort of whatever for a couple of years, and you know they're not, but they are 3,000 years old. So obviously this is the archaeologist there with a little wooden hat on, but usually what they've got to do is planking across this site, and they're actually, as you saw earlier on, where they had planking across it so they can actually work down instead of treading on it. And and look at that, it's a fish trap. I should have asked you what you should have brought Tom in, and that's a fish trap. Yeah, exactly. Then remember,
I would have said a basket, you know, but yeah, I suppose that's what
it's a fish trap. It's a fish or an eel trap, more likely an eel trap. So basically the eels can't really turn around, and they end up going to a little funnel and they're trapped and they can't get out. Or there's nothing. Well, basically what would usually happen, there's two interpretations of this. You could move this a bit further on, sort of into another basket, or that would be for eels and so on. But or you could just think the fish going in here and they can't turn around, so they're trapped.
And that's your dinner.
Well, that's your dinner. Also, well, it'd be your dinner because I'm a veggie.
Oh yeah. Well, you might not have been back then.
And hang on a minute. You can watch your words. That's blasphemy. Because what we've got. No, no. Honestly,
sorry, I didn't mean to say it like that. But you might not have been.
It is blasphemy because in Siberia they've got a site dating back to 45,000 years ago, and the people did not eat red meat.
No. Okay.
They were veggies. So when you say, how dare you say everybody ate meat in the past, that's actually wrong.
Well, I'm not saying that.
So what you should do is always think outside the box. It's not always black and white, Rosamond. You have been told. Are you still hearing me? Hello? Rosamond, I've lost you. Hello? Hello. We seem to have a technical problem at this minute. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop the recording a minute. And where are we? We'll just sort of. Are you still there, Rosamond? No, she can't hear me a minute. Right, I'm just going to see what I can do. Rosamond, can you hear me? It's her end, I think. Okay, we'll go back to the fish in a moment. Let's sort of. Okay, Rosamond. Okay.
Well, I said something to offend you.
Right, you're still with me. Don't worry about it. Good. We lost you for a bit.
Can you see me?
Yeah,
I lost you.
I was just saying that not everybody on the planet populations of are meat eaters. And actually, to be honest with you, yeah, it's different horses for courses. So anyway, can you hear me? Hello? Your connection is not good. Rosamond, can you hear me? Nope, she can't hear me.
Hello.
Hello, right, can you hear me?
Yes, I think it might be. Hang on, I'm just trying to come back. I think it might be our internet.
Right, it probably is. Right, well, I'll keep talking, okay?
Okay, yeah, I think it was our internet.
Right, don't worry about it. So obviously in the past, we got indications of pescatarians, vegetarians, meat eaters, and all the rest of it at different sites. This is the
Yeah.
evidence what's being told. So we'll just carry on. We'll carry on there. So obviously, that's obviously one meal for the evening for one family.
Yes.
And if we sort of move on a little bit further, I remember there's going to be lots
Would they
of
have eaten as families, or would they have eaten as a group, as a tribe?
Now, this is an important point. What we do find in the past, at certain points of time, people ate as communities,
Yes.
or people ate as families. It really depends. Now, look at this.
Okay.
Now, look at the bowls. They're full of food.
Incredible.
No, it is. It is
It's
incredible.
absolutely incredible.
There's me going on about a bit of medieval pottery, and you got whole bowls. You make you thinking, oh well, that's we'll sling that. But anyway, no, the perfectly preserved bowls. Every bit of archaeology is important, I would say. But we've got yeah, these are perfect. These, you don't get this type of level of Bronze Age stroke Iron Age artifacts in this massive state of preservation. You really don't, even with the contents in there.
No.
So ready mixed cornflakes.
So yeah, they've been able to sort of, it's archaeologists have been able to work out what the recipes, have they?
Yeah,
they've
been able to work out their last meals.
Right. Look at that bit of preserved wood.
Yeah, this is the point. Some of the wood preserved on the site it looks like it was yesterday.
Yeah, could have been from the First World War, say, couldn't it?
Well, yeah, it's better than the First World War. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Lots of the remains of First World War sites are in a really bad state, but this is absolutely wonderful. This is 3,000 years old. Yeah, and you
wouldn't have thought that was 3,000 years old.
No, the bark has come off there, but the underneath it's wonderful. It's perfectly preserved.
It is.
And again, oh yeah, look at that over there. Look at the if you go over to the left there, if we sort of move over there, you can see that there. Look at that there.
Yeah.
The beautifully preserved wattle paneling.
Wow.
Really, yeah. And you know,
so this was a really good site back in 3,000 years ago. This would have been the place to live, would it?
It would have been a place to live, but there is one thing about it. There is one little thing about this, right? This is like 0.01% of the survival history of that period. So there might have been equally many sites like this, and many sites that were very different, you know. But
yeah,
this is one time capsule. So in other words, if you want to get a jigsaw set, right, and you want to have a 10,000 jigsaw sets.
Yeah.
We've got like 20 of those jigsaw sets that we've excavated. And this out of 10,000 jigsaw sets, we've probably got about 8,000 of the pieces. The usual jigsaw set from this period 3,000 years ago, the usual evidence that survives is around 100 pieces, 200 pieces. You're lucky to get 1,000 pieces of the jigsaw set from a site 3,000 years old. What we're talking about is all those little nuances, and because timber doesn't survive, evidence in bowls doesn't survive, this type of stuff. So
no.
you're pretty much, basically, right, you haven't got all the pieces of the jigsaw set, right? You've got 1,500 pieces missing, right?
Yeah.
But you can reconstruct the village. You can archaeologists reconstruct villages from 1,000 pieces, right? Which,
yeah,
they're pushing it. Time Team, I've watched Time Team episodes. They could reconstruct a village from that.
Has this been reconstructed?
those types of reconstructions, as an actual reconstructed village, no, but reconstruction models have been done, yeah.
Yeah.
All of these timbers, that's part of your research to try and work out what's going on. So they are excavated, and what we do see over there is lots of bone, animal bones, horn cores, and those types of things. So we can associate the fact that there would have been goat, there would have been the odd cattle around, and so on and so on. So this is all indicated from the archaeology. And here we go. This little bit of information. So what they're doing. This says 2000. This says 2016, 24th of September. This is the post-excavation diary. So the excavation is already finished. So they're just talking about September 2016. So this is only 5 years ago, 4.5, 5 years ago. So if we sort of go into this little bit of information, excavating and recording the remains, it seems like a long time ago that we began to remove the 2 meters of sediment. It's only 2 meters. You can get prehistoric sites that are 5 or 6 meters under the surface, or millimeters, right? This is the way archaeology works. You can excavate some Roman sites, and the evidence is basically 10 meters below the surface, depends where you are. So they removed these 2 meters of sediments, all that build up. The lake eventually dried out, right? 10 months of excavation, a lot of investment in there, hundreds of thousands of pounds, a dedicated team recovering all the archaeology. I'm just going to make a little bit of a statement. If this was found in Wales, this wouldn't happen. And it would.
Is that because we don't have the funding for it, or?
Yes, we do have the funding. If you can pay the chief executive of Cadw £160,000 a year.
Oh.
Yeah. There is money to do this work here, but it's not the Newport ship. The Newport ship was lifted, and it's done via voluntary money contributions.
Okay. Not
money paid in by the state. So anyway, political statement there. But if this was found in Wales, this would never happen. We wouldn't have done this. So what they've got in the last few weeks of the excavation, unearthing uprights, houses, palisades, timber causeway. This was no easy task, as we had to carefully excavate slots into the Rodon silts next to the post. So that's basically the silts, the Rodon silts, geological name, before gently extracting them. At this point, we could then photograph and record any tool markings present, which is relatively time consuming. So they've really done a good job in giving us. And the other thing as well is the other amazing thing was this was live. They were actually giving us this information live. They were filming all this and telling us live. So this is the sort of platform outline. This is the platform outline, and you can see there. This is the Rodon silts, the glacial silts below.
Oh gosh, look at that! I thought it was cement.
No, this is what is difficult to move. There's 2 meters of earth here, which they've done, and that's the site. Look how well preserved they are, with sharpened spikes on the end. That is invaluable evidence. It's perfect.
But you wouldn't have thought that was 3,000 years old, would you?
Look at that. I know. Look at it. They were driven into the mud 3,000 years ago. And it sort of goes on to say a little bit more information here as well. Once this task was complete, a final set of environmental samples taken to sort of give us as much information as possible. These samples reflect layers of silt. The earliest stages of the site, they took 1,000 samples from the site so that they could examine them. However, one of the main reasons we were focusing on was cataloguing and packaging of the wooden objects and timbers from across the site, because they needed to lift 5,000 timbers, because all of these needed to be removed because the landscape was being quarried. So in other words, the one good thing is where they removed everything of the archaeology, everything, because they had to. And then when the developers went in there to build the quarry, there was no archaeology left. But we saved it all. We saved it all. It's basically a kit form archaeology being moved. And look at that bit of timber there in the screen there. Look at that. That little the one at the bottom there. It's amazing.
But they used to build things to last, didn't they?
Yeah, and like look at that there. I imagine, right? That's you putting the timber in a fire and me putting the timber in a fire, and then Tom's come back and Michelle's come back and put water on the fire, right?
Yeah.
We've taken the timber out. That's what you get.
Wow.
It is wow. I bet you're glad we did this now.
I am. I'm glad we followed on and didn't do the other thing we were going to do.
Owing to the sheer quantity of wood at the settlement, it was not possible to preserve and retain it all. Instead, most timbers were recorded with a more unusual or exceptional piece of the wood being selected to be packaged for conservation. This still resulted in hundreds of timbers and wooden artifacts being retained and prepared them for temporary storage, involving lots of packaging. Oh yeah, I said earlier on that they removed everything from site. I think they did remove everything from site, but obviously they had to conserve other ones in different ways to sort of understand wood species, tool marks, charring patterns, and so on.
Not mean feat, that is it? Cataloguing it all.
5,000 objects. Every single one needs to be worked out where it exactly came from, and so on and so on. All frozen in a big freezer. I think Michelle wouldn't be happy with us being in the freezer.
No.
I know a woman who has got 2 animals that have died, and she keeps them in the freezer.
Oh, wow.
And unfortunately, a deep freeze went the other day.
Ah.
Anyway,
moving on.
Yeah, she's called Julie. Never mind, we won't talk about Julie, Michelle. After this recording was completed, the timbers were catalogued with an additional set of unique numbers. So everything was recorded. The next stage was to prevent them drying out, spraying them with water, a bit like what they've done with the Newport ship. Once this was done, the timbers were packaged in thick plastic and carefully sealed to prevent any moisture escaping. These carefully packaged would go to a storage facility. It'd be good to know what's happening with them, to avert living organisms from destroying them, and obviously a long-term conservation project to really work out what's going on. So a lot happening. And basically, now I want to know what this next bit says. Reburying the site. Hang on a minute. Hang on, I thought it was removed. I got all that wrong. See, it's a long time since I've looked at this site. Reburying the site. With the remaining wood recorded and packaged, we had reached the end of the excavation. We had completed what the project set out to do, to record and remove the settlement archaeology from the site. So they did remove it all. Okay, yeah. So why are they reburying the site, right? We were effectively left with an empty hole in the ground. Also, I was right anyway. Why do I doubt myself, Rosamond?
I don't know. But it was a bit confusing there at the beginning, where they're saying they're reburying it, isn't it?
And yeah, when everything's been moved. You could tell it's been a while since I did this one. But both artifacts and structural material having been carefully recorded and then lifted. However, we have gathered an enormous body of evidence to analyze and explore over the coming years. So basically, they excavated the site, then they reburied it, even though there was nothing there.
Yes.
I will go with that one, right? So in other words, I'm right in the first place.
Yeah. It's quite a large site, that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, by those diggers, yeah. All that remained was to rebury the site. We've done that, backfilling it with a layer of clay to disassemble a warehouse that had protected the excavation, blah, blah, blah. So they were excavating under that shelter, which was great. Reburying the site brought the end of the excavation. The months of work in the field and getting environmental information over the next coming months, analysing what they can find out from Must Farm. Now that quickly dealt with that bit.
Yes.
So basically now after the excavation from September 2016, it's the post-excavation work, which is getting each aspect of this element of the project underway had been time consuming, but seeing analysis begin has been hugely satisfying. So in other words, they're in laboratories examining everything, individual focus with gloves and so on, and getting some really interesting archaeology out. So it's like, for example, you can get artifacts from an archaeological site and you don't really know what they are until you've taken them to a laboratory. And it goes on to say, what does Must's farms post-excavation involve? Cover it. Basically, they've got so much to look at. They've got the food to look at, that analysis. They've got the timber to analyze. They've got the carpentry skills to analyze. They've got the animal bones to analyze. There's so many different areas for them to analyze, and how the site's laid out. Historians have got to get involved, archaeologists, people doing radiocarbon dating. It's glacial experts. So many ways of looking at this. And what there's this new thing in archaeology, sort of working out the site from different colors, to sort of working out the beams and all this way things are and where artifacts are. So this report I can imagine that a report for this site would be quite big. This is no mean feat.
No mean feat at all. Where is it all being stored? If they've got a special warehouse or something.
Actually, that's your homework.
Okay.
October, December 2016, 3 months at the end of last year, marked the time. So basically, they're transferring everything. Most of the archaeologists who worked on the physical excavation of the settlement moved on to new sites, while a smaller team began to compile all the information collected over the 14 months of excavation, doing wood sampling, looking at species. Oh, this is interesting. So the wood that they worked out there come from oak, ash. Those are the bigger ones. Looking at wattle panels, looking at that, what they all made of. Using microscopes and really getting into the nitty gritty of the post excavation. So the ash and the oak would have been naturally available from more landward areas away from the water. So that there is organic residue. So I can only say that's organic residue from, that looks like it could be from a bowl.
Yeah.
So that and loads of bits of broken. This is actually flint.
I was going to say, is that flint?
Oh, hang on a minute.
Quernstone.
No, it's actually a flint quernstone. I can remember this. I can remember flint quernstone. That is flint, but quernstone analysis. As we were excavating the occupation deposits from the interior of the buildings, we came across a huge. So basically, everything went down to the bottom. So when the floor collapsed, the quernstone had been heated up, but when it hit the cold water, it shattered. And here we go. It's made of flint. It's made. It was a quernstone made of flint. Yeah. So as soon as it hit the water, it basically exploded into bits, and it stayed where it was.
Yeah.
Hang on, if we go back a little bit there, just quickly, it goes very. Specialists looking at the flint quernstone and made some very interesting observations. If a quern was being used to process plant remains, we should expect to see identifiable handstones. Handstones, the hard stones used above the main body of the quern to crush it. So they're rocking back and forth. So it's a hand quern rather than a rotary quern, right? So basically you would rock it back and forth. However, there doesn't seem to be any present from the site anywhere in the assemblage. So it might not have been completed. I think that's what they're saying. Typically, when a hard stone quern is used for grinding, the surface developed a prominent indentation where the handstone is rubbed against it. Perhaps the flint quern was very new and had not been used enough to develop a prominent depression. So in other words, as they're rocking back and forth, there's a depression in it. So there's no indent. So, or it could have been used differently, and the flint was chosen specifically for that reason. So there's an idea that it could have been used for something else.
Yeah. But
look at that there. The reason why that looks like gold is because when a bronze axe ends up in the water, the way the acids and all the rest of it in the water, it's anaerobic, non-anaerobic conditions.
What is it? An axe head or?
Yeah, it's an axe head. It's a socketed axe head.
And it's copper.
Yes. So basically what's happening, the small acids that are in the muds and the silts are decaying the copper in the bronze, but there isn't too much oxygen in the muds there. It's actually decaying the timber. So this is the reaction. And when this comes out of the muds, it comes out looking as gold.
Wow, clever.
So people are long wandering around the beachfronts on the Thames doing mudlark, and they think they found gold when in fact they found bronze. But it's still really, it comes out like that with gold. So it goes on to say that they're continuing to analyze. This is in 2017. The excitement in archaeology of this site is amazing because it was so really well preserved, and it's trying to work out where that little plan is at the bottom, where all the timbers and everything go in. So this is long since this was written in 2018, trying to work that out, trying to have the eye to work that out on all the timbers. So on the right there, we've got the paneling for the wattle panels on the side of the building, and lots of the uprights. We've got everything. You can see two sets of panels there. Can you see that? Yeah?
Yes.
One set of panel there, one set of panel. So there'd be a timber upright between the panels.
Yeah.
And basically they would have been put in between, and then everything's collapsed. So then what we then have, we carry on a little bit more. So
ongoing work and updates.
Yeah, exactly. Look at all these all these socketed axe and arrowheads and so
they've
on.
been cleaning them up.
What's that?
And they've been cleaning these up, and
yeah, obviously they need to be conserved, and you need to stop the it's called copper disease or bronze disease that actually attacks these things when they've been out of the ground.
Yeah.
So these are all socketed.
They're fantastic, isn't it?
They are. And here we go. It's saying that you know, I was talking about different specialists, 80 different specialists involved, from metallurgists, as I said, archaeologists, radiocarbon date. So 80 different people from different fields have been looking at all this archaeology. Pollen, people who just do pollen analysis, people who do osteoanalysis with bones and all the rest of it. So the Must Farm settlement's destruction raises questions about whether this material reflects its position prior to the fire that brought about the end of the site. Recent post-excavation work is helping us to address that issue. At Must Farm, the preservation of material left behind is fantastic because the ideal combination of charring and waterlogging. So textiles, wooden objects, and environmental evidence are among the finest examples from the late Bronze Age, the sort of late Bronze Age, Iron Age period that I've been talking about. And as we sort of go on, and look at that axe there. Oh, and actually, this is this is major, right? In archaeology, what you think you know how these things were. What they used to think was that if we sort of draw this in, is that socketed axe was somehow connected into a bit of timber that was actually grown that way, right?
Yes.
Well, it actually turned out that that's not the case.
No,
it's a composite piece. So you've got this sort of maybe an ash handle with a more of a harder bit of wood to take the blows, and this is hollow because that was the way it was mounted, and where they actually found a complete axe. And now we know how these worked. Our reconstructions up to this point were completely wrong. A socketed axe in archaeology, understand the context of objects is important as the artifacts themselves. So now we know how these things worked. Reconstructions before this were completely wrong. They used to think that it was hollow because of the way there was a bit of wood that went in there, but that's not the case. It is part of the mounting process. It's a composite bit of timber that is in 3 bits, and there's a fourth. This is the binding that was actually used as well, where that little cross is.
I don't think you wouldn't have thought that was 3,000 years old, would you? If you were, say, walking along and you just found that.
Michelle would put it in a bag and wander home with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, this is what we're talking about. Yeah. This is what we're looking at. So finally, as we get to the end now, and again, there's lots of this on the internet, and again, lots of things about the diary which you can read up on the internet, and this is there anyway. And more of these wonderful objects being recovered, bits of timber, and it's talking about it's talking in this about the different species of wood 3,000 years ago. It's talking about how they're processing the wood back in the time.
I'm seeing there that it says that animal hoof prints are alongside.
Those are animal hoof prints.
And from 3,000 years ago.
Yeah, and basically what's happening in the mud, what happened is the animals are coming close to the buildings, and they're sort of wallowing in the mud and whatever.
Yeah.
These are tracks in the mud, and then they filled it with sediment alongside some of these timbers, and they've been preserved.
So have they dug those? They've dug those up, as well,
and they've made impressions of them. Yeah, so we can get an idea which animals they are. And look at these bowls as they're being put together. Some are complete and some are from bits of pottery. But this is how well the archaeology is preserved.
Yes.
Again, absolutely amazing collection.
Yeah.
And this is what we're talking about. I think we got the Flag Fen site there. Oh, there it is. Must Farm is on the bottom right-hand corner. There's Flag Fen near Peterborough. Okay. So in other words, the landscape, they're building houses on old fen flooded landscapes, which is mad.
Yeah.
But that's the madness of the housing scheme.
Modern day.
Yeah, modern day, yeah. So that was a quarry there. So obviously it's getting context with the landscape and the changes. Again, sort of a last image of this as we sort of finish. And there's a bowl with its contents spewing out. A last meal. A last preserved meal. And then finally, I think that's the last one. It is incredible. And that is it. Are there any questions before we...
Wow, I'm impressed with that. I'm glad we did that today. And it led on from our previous lectures, the beaker people.
Exactly. Maybe next week we can do something else.
Yes, we can finally move on.
We can finally move on. So after the Bronze Age is the Iron Age, and then you got the Roman period, job done. All these different weird lectures that we've been doing. So what I'll do, I'll stop the sharing now. Is there anything else you'd like to ask me about this before we finish?
No, thanks, Carl. Fascinating.
Brilliant.
I was interested. Brilliant. Yeah, I got
excellent.
Lots of things to look at.
That's your homework for next week. Good.
Oh, okay. So, well, I don't know if I'll get it all done by next week, but I shall try.
So if anyone's watching this and they want a one-to-one with me, then they need to get in touch. Details down below.
Yeah, and they should.
Okay, so what we'll do, if there's no more questions for this recording, I will stop the recording now.
Okay.
Good. So if there's no more questions about that, 1, 2, 3, stop.